you know, you had tournament organizations, BASS, FLW, you know, doing stuff without angler consent, like without our approval or without a vote. Like, you know, I remember this feeling, especially going into 2017, where the anglers started feeling like we didn't have a say, like we weren't important, we didn't have a voice. And even though both leagues up to that point, they had angler groups, they really didn't mean anything, right? They had these angler organizations, but we still didn't really have say. They were just an organization just for the sake of them sort of appeasing us. You know, it's real easy for me now to look back to that time a few years ago and see what a huge impact it instantly had on the sport, right? You know, when that split happened, it really did open up the eyes of all the tournament leagues, not just Bass, not just Major League Fishing, but even FLW. And I think all the leagues had to stop and say, yes, these guys, these athletes, these anglers are important. They're the reason we can run a business. The athletes, the anglers are the reason we sell magazines. They're the reason people watch the tournament show. They're the reason, you know, we get views on the website, right? It's the anglers. It's them who bring the business. And I really do think that that was a time where the organizations and some of the general public woke up and they said, yeah, we gotta take care of our anglers. Going into 2019, fishing a new tour at Major League Fishing, there was excitement and there was energy, and you know, the format was different. The way that the tournaments were covered were different, and you know, that was really the feeling going into the first couple events. You know, I remember feeling like, man, this is the start of something big. This could be the first time that, you know, we have power in the sport. You know, there were some really good things happening. You know, one of them was collectively that fall, all the 80 guys that decided to switch tours decided on no entry fees. No entry fees for a full-time professional angler to compete.
You know, arguably you have the top 80 guys from both tours that have come to a new level of bass fishing, and it's exciting for bass fishing in general. It's exciting for everybody that enjoys watching the sport, and of course the anglers got together and the league, and to make it even more special, for the first time ever, we've reached a level we have no entry fees.
Zero, you know, not $100, not $1,000, not $5,000, with zero entry fee. You know, with what's happening in MLF, it's a big moment for me. It's a big moment for everybody involved. It really is the beginning of the future of the sport. Dude, I think it was the biggest decision that's ever happened in fishing, because in every other professional sport, you don't have to pay. Once you get to the highest level of competition, you don't have to pay money. And this was one of those things where it was like, oh my gosh, it's working. We're having a say. We're having a voice. So there was a lot of positive things. It was also a good thing for the other leagues because they started to make changes. They started listening to the anglers. They started to reduce the entry fees a little bit. They started trying to increase the payouts. So there was definitely a momentum that had shifted in 2019. you know, at the same time, you know, for me personally, I think it was a little bit of a struggle. And some of the things that happened to me that I was struggling with was probably the events themselves. And one of the things with Major League Fishing starting in 2019 is these were sort of what I call made for TV tournaments. And when you got back after the end of a hard day of fishing, you didn't weigh and fish, right? Major League Fishing was catch, weigh, and release. So there were no fish to weigh in. There was no stage. There was no crowds. There wasn't a lot of media coverage. There were no fans. And I think for me, subconsciously, it really started to weigh on me from like the first tournament. You know, the other thing, as 2019 progressed and as I tried to settle into this new format, the other thing that I really struggled with was me being me on live coverage and the league accepting that. And, you know, I guess the best way to put it is that when I left Bass and came to MLF, I really, deep down inside, thought that me being me would be more accepted. More accepted by the fans, by the league, and in fact, it was the opposite. So, you know, as that season went on, as things would happen on the water that were covered live or captured on video, you know, it's hard for me to exactly describe this, but it was always taken to a negative place.
Hey, big one.
And with just 3 minutes left in period one, Iaconelli is looking to make some noise on the score tracker.
Ah! 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 Ah!
If he was my kid, he'd get a spanking right now.
4-2.
Oh, God, yeah.
Iaconelli just caught a 4-pounder.
No! I bet there's some screaming going on.
I could have swore that was a 5, man. That was 24. Oh, other one. Another big one. Another big one. Yeah! Wow!
I sound like he's throwing up over now.
1-9.
Right at the end, you know, my motto in life and fishing, never give up. Right at the end, baby.
Whether it was how it was portrayed or whether it was fines. And, you know, I would say by about 3/4 of the way through 2019, for me personally, I was sort of in the same boat I was in Bass. You know, the novelty and the energy of this excitement and thinking we had a voice started to really fade quickly. By the start of 2020, you know, we realized that, a lot of us realized that even though we all came over in hopes of creating something new and different and having a true voice and a true say, a lot of us were convinced that it was the same thing. And, you know, I can remember being at the first tournament of the year in 2020 and really just sort of like, I don't know how to say this, but feeling like I'm back to where I was before, right? I'm back to square one. You know, I didn't have a voice. I didn't have a say. Decisions were being made based on production and sponsors and money rather than the angler's vote and the angler's right. And in 2020, at the beginning, I was really in a really bad place mentally. I can remember after one tournament, it was a tournament I had where I just missed the cut and I was already feeling, you know, depressed about being in a league that I thought was going to change the sport. It wasn't. And then I had a bad tournament. And then, you know, of course, it was spun a different way. And I remember feeling after that event so depressed, so removed from wanting to even wake up the next day to go fishing. Man, it reminded me, you know, of sort of where I was way back in 2006, you know, when I was burned out and when I was mentally drained and physically drained. It sort of reminded me of that. But this was all based on my mental health, right? This was all mental. This wasn't physical. I wasn't physically tired, but mentally, I felt like I was just being hung out to dry. You know, I felt like I was the only one saying, guys, you realize we're back to square one? Do you realize we don't have a voice? And, you know, that piled on top of me feeling like Major League Fishing didn't care about my mental health. You know, whether that's true or not, I don't know. But I was in a dark place. You know, the best way I can describe it is maybe to give you an analogy like of being in a bad work environment, right? You know, we've all had jobs in the past where, you know, we liked the job. The job itself was okay. But the work environment was such that it made going to work almost unbearable.
If I could read the diary of any other MLF angler, it'd be a toss-up between a couple guys, but I'm going to have to go with Skeet Reese.
I bet Ike's got a pretty colorful diary.
I actually snuck into his big yellow truck and read it. It went a little something like this. 7 a.m., wake up, do my hair. 7:05, wake up, comb my hair.
Because there'd be all bleep, 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 bleep.
7:10, wake up, straighten the back of my hair. 7:15, wake up, look at my hair in the mirror. Bleep! That was just the small little portion of it, but I'd like to see the whole diary from Skeet.
You know, honestly, I wouldn't want to read the diary of any of the MLF anglers, a bunch of psychopaths.
Really, that's where I was at. And, you know, for I would say a few month stretch there, it was hard for me to wake up to go compete every day. And I know it sounds bad, right? Man, I don't ever want to take for granted the opportunities that I have in my life. I get to fish for a living. It's a childhood dream. Oh my God, I'm living my dream. But the environment was so bad for me that I dreaded it. I didn't want to wake up. I remember getting home from tournaments, and I'm home now with my family, right? I'm home, I'm away from the tournaments, and I still felt like that. I could feel the baggage of that brought home. And when that happened, you know, Becky really was the one that said, we got to fix this. And, you know, it started with just, you know, sort of making people aware of what was going on. And, you know, I remember sitting down with her and saying, man, I want to just be honest with people, and I want to tell people that I'm struggling right now and that it's a hard time for me mentally right now. And, you know, how do I tell people that? Man, I grew up in Philadelphia, right? I'm from an area. I live in the Northeast. I'm from Philly and Jersey. I'm a late 40-year-old male. I'm Italian. You don't talk about that crap. You don't do it. It's unheard of. You don't cry. You don't talk about it. It's embarrassing. That's the world I was brought up in. But, you know, with Becky's help, I think she made me realize that, man, let people know. You know, let people know what's going on. And, you know, I was able to put together a social post and put it out there, and it was very freeing for me. And, you know, I called my sponsors, and the social posts, I really tried to connect with the fans to let them know what I was going through. And, you know, I didn't want to throw MLF under the bus, and I didn't want to throw Bass under. I didn't want to throw anybody under the bus. I threw myself under the bus because I was going through a tough time for me, mentally. But when all that was going on, you know, Becky and I sort of knew at that very moment that I needed a break. I needed a pause. I needed a change. I needed a rest from this sport. You know, whether it was me working at this for 30 years, whether it was the time away from home, whether it was the struggles I was having mentally at Major League Fishing, or maybe it was a combination of all those. You know, I knew going into 2020 that I was going to need a pause. And out of the blue, in the spring, early spring of 2020, as we were feeling this, and as Becky and I already knew in our hearts and souls that we needed a pause, the world changed and COVID hit.
Heard you had a bad day, it ain't going your way, yeah, never give up. Heard my life was a movie, I got people trying to use me, I will never give up. It's not about where you at, it's about where you headed. And all the things they say about you only heard if you let it. I gotta put on for the kids, cause they getting the message. I'm on my knees thanking God, look at all of my blessings. Look at little old me doing real big things from a real small town, I'ma make them all proud. And these kids need a leader, I'ma show them all how. Anybody in my way, then we gon' mow them all down. Hey, from the Garden State, I got some deep roots. Fisherman drip with some new boots. I almost didn't make it, that's the real truth. They call me the general, I got real juice. Pull up in a Bass Cat doing donuts. When I'm at the Classic, the people go nuts. Heard you had a bad day, it ain't going your way, yeah, never give up. Heard my life was a movie, I got people trying to use me, I will never give up.
I think everyone remembers, you know, where they were at when the pandemic started, you know, and we were actually, I remember we were at the Philadelphia airport heading to the Bassmaster Classic. And, you know, we were going to be there representing Pro Edge with Bass University and Ike Foundation and Ike Live. And I remember at the airport, we're starting to hear that this pandemic might be a thing. And then, you know, sure enough, it was like within that time frame, the next few weeks, the world changed.
Yeah, make all the demons quiet. Yeah, we were built to thrive. Yeah, I think that we've all had enough. What keeps lift you up at night, yeah. Make all the demons quiet, yeah. We were built to thrive, yeah.